It's the kind of situation that we were kind of like monitoring, and we figured that we would keep Reagor on the 53 man roster until he's traded. That trade happened. I was hearing some talks of that before it happened. But the fact that you got value for a guy that hasn't really worked out here, he's flashed, but not flashed enough.
NFL, we've been talking college. All of you in the chat room have been waiting patiently for our Eagles chatter today. And here to do it is Gayle Saunders. Pop him up there, Tone, from 4th and Jawn. Good morning, Gayle. How are you today?
What's up, Rick, man? Big fan. NFL Draft Bible Days, man. I've been following you a long time, man. Glad to be on your show.
No, I appreciate it, man. And we've been following everything you've been doing. You've been at this quite a while as well, going back to your days at the Roto World, I believe, and now with the 4th and Jawn. I mean, tell the listening audience at home what you got cooking these days.
Yeah, 4th and Jawn, we're pretty much trying to be everywhere, whether it's tailgating, whether it's the Senior Bowl, whether it's covering the Eagles 24/7. That's what we try to do from a fan's perspective. But we like to analyze everything, so it's Eagles talk 24/7.
No doubt. There's a lot of content flowing over there at 4thandjawn.com. Go check it out. Make sure you follow Gayle on Twitter. He's a great follow. And Eagles fans, you're going to love his breakdowns and analysis. Let's start off with your reaction to the Jalen Reagor news. I thought it was great that, how he played this poker face the whole way, heaped praise on Jalen Reagor all preseason long when he showed us absolutely nothing. And I think he bamboozled the Vikings here. What's your take, and how does it play out with this punt return situation?
It's the kind of situation that we were kind of like monitoring, and we figured that we would keep Reagor on the 53 man roster until he's traded. That trade happened. I was hearing some talks of that before it happened. But the fact that you got value for a guy that hasn't really worked out here, he's flashed, but not flashed enough. You talk about him coming in as a wide receiver 5, him being a potential punt returner. Him being a punt returner isn't anything flashy either. He hasn't really been consistent there. So I think Howie did a great job just getting something back in return. I think change of scenery might be nice for him at this moment.
Yeah, maybe. I don't see it. They talked about the explosion. Where was it? I mean, come on. We shall see. But, like I said earlier, he gets to play alongside what a real NFL wide receiver looks like.
That's got to be a weird scene, though. That has to be a weird scene. Him stepping in the locker room, and Jefferson looking at him like, I'm sorry what I've done to your career. I mean, it's tough. And Jefferson's been very open about feeling bad for Reagor with all his success. It's a definitely weird scene.
Yeah, well, if anything, he has a new friend in Minnesota, so we'll see how it pans out. We'll see if he lasts with the Vikings. I know they're desperate at the wide receiver position. They're a little banged up there, but who do you put out if you're Howie Roseman, if you're Ric Serritella? Who's out there fielding the kicks and punts for you in week 1?
Well, you got Gainwell, you got Quez Watkins. I think between those two, and see who can be that guy. If you plan to bring Greg Ward back when he's healthy, he's a guy that could also do it. I mean, you also have Britton Covey in the works. I think he could be a serviceable punt returner. I'm not sure is he consistent as a wide receiver yet. So right now, you got Gainwell, you got Quez Watkins. I think those will be the guys you rock with early.
How about Devin Allen, though? Because, I mean, this guy has more speed than all of them. I know he's 27. He's kind of learning the ropes a little bit. I would have liked to see him more out there, but I thought he showed some flashes where, like, hey, if I was the Eagles, like the whole practice, I just have him there fielding kicks, fielding punts, because he's electrifying with the ball in his hands. You can't teach that kind of speed. Yeah. Any shot that they can develop him to kind of be groomed for that role?
I think the practices I was at, he didn't really show out much. I mean, that speed at the is unmatched. You saw it in the preseason game, but I think you're going to have to keep developing him. I don't think he's where they want him to be yet to be on the field, to be relied on. I think he's a guy that you can't teach speed. Yeah, he's got that. Now it's just a matter of putting it all together, and his ability to show up as a gunner as well. You saw that against the Cleveland Browns. So if he's trying to make this roster, he's going to have to show out on special teams, and if he can be more consistent as a punt returner, that was a position I was looking at closely while I was at camp. Talk about between him and Britton Covey. Britton Covey had that pretty much on lock. If you're going to compare the two.
Okay. All right. Well, that's why we have you on, because you're the one on the scene and knows what's going on. I'm just reporting from my cozy living room in the Jersey Shore right here. We've got Gayle Saunders here from 4th and Jawn on the Football Playbook, breaking down some Eagles for you today. Let's talk about some of these practice squad signings. 2 new faces: Ian Book, the quarterback; LaMichael Pirine, the running back. 2 former draft picks not too long ago. Eagles rolling the dice here. What's your take?
Ian Book, you talk about the Saints situation. They had Andy Dalton backing up. What's his name? His name. Jameis
Winston. We just talked about him. Yeah, we just put him in the Super Bowl. Don't worry.
I don't think there was room for him, with Taysom Hill being there as well. You talk about a guy who they're, trying to develop. He did get one start against the Dolphins when half the team got COVID that one time. You talk about a guy who at one point in time he was one of the 2 quarterbacks with Jalen Hurts to pass over 2,500 yards and rush over 500 yards. From an athletic pro, he's got the ability to make some plays with his legs. But again, you talk about Carson Strong and Reed Sennett. I think the Eagles didn't exactly get what they wanted to see from those guys. So if they think Ian Book is going to be that dude that they could develop, he could be a developmental project. Obviously, Sean Payton saw something in to draft him in the 4th round. But it's, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. How he likes to draft a quarterback, it seems like almost every year, even if it's on day 3. So maybe one of these Jalen Reagor picks becomes that. If not, maybe Ian Book develops into that backup, because I don't see Gardner Minshew here. Reed Sennett, despite his roller coaster training camp, he was brought back on the practice squad, as was Anthony Harris, that I want to ask you about, because there was some uncertainty what would happen once they acquired Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Yep.
Anthony Harris was released. We didn't know if he would be coming or going. Kayvon Wallace, despite making the 53-man roster, still seems like he's on the bubble. What do you make? I think you're only as strong as your weakest link. The weakest link on this roster is probably the safety position. How do you assess the safeties?
Now, the safeties, that was the one position when I was frequently asked, like every day, what position that I was concerned about going into the season. It was a safety group. I'm talking about, the depth. You're talking about Epps being a guy who only played 50% of the snaps. He's forecasted in as your starter. You get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who is exactly what I was kind of looking for. I've been eyeing him up since draft days. He's a guy that the Eagles had interest in. He got out of college. They were at his pro day and they were working him out. So he's a guy that's been on my radar. He has that range. Now, when you talk about him versus a Anthony Harris, that's pretty much the biggest difference, also size. But Anthony Harris, he hasn't really flashed too much in camp. He's been okay, but he hasn't been enough to write home to mom about being excited about. I guess he's a serviceable guy, but at the end of the day, I think him being on the practice squad, hopefully they figured to get him back on the roster. I think there's still some moves to be made. This 53 is not locked yet. I think there's still another move in the wings to be made by Howie. So, I think that Chauncey move was solid. That's we talk about range. You talk about where the Eagles have been picked apart. It's been in the middle of the field, the seams. You have linebackers with Kaiser White coming off the bench. You just got range that can move, and then your safeties. It's a new tandem, but I think with that versatility in Chauncey. He's a guy who can move into the slot if you need him, or he can play in the box and play on the back end. Because that's really what we were concerned from our safety position.
Yeah, an upgrade, no doubt about it. And moving the needle a little bit there in the NFC odds in Vegas. I'll pick your brain on that in just a second. But you made a good point. The 53-man roster is not done. There's still a week, 10 days until kickoff. Some moving and shaking still to be had on, whether it's the 53-man or the practice squad. What position do you still feel like Howie could be looking to upgrade here, do you think?
Well, with the Michael P. Ryan movie, they're like, they're looking for a guy that can give some juice. There was some from the potential target from a running back, a power guy, Jay Ajayi on steroids type move, like to make a run. I think that's one other move that they could possibly upgrade. I think you look at the running back position. You talk about Miles Sanders is on his last year. You got Boston Scott he's only here on a 1-year deal. You only have one running back in the mix who's going to be here for a couple years, and that's Gainwell. So you have Kennedy Brooks here, but again, it's you're trying to think about long term. So right now it's a three-headed monster, but it could be potentially a 4-headed monster. I'm okay with that as long as you're not these guys at the moment form like Voltron. I dig it.
All right, I like the Voltron reference. I was always a Voltron over Transformer guy myself. Gayle Saunders here on the Football Playbook, breaking it down, chopping it up. Eagles talk. Let's go over to the division rival Cowboys, who are just desperate along that offensive line. They're kicking the tires on Jason Peters, 40 years old. He came in and tried to help out the Bears last year and actually winded up starting for them. Is this an El Desperado ploy? Can Jason Peters actually be a serviceable cog for this Dallas Cowboys offensive line?
With all due respect, I love Jason Peters, but I do have to be real with myself. There's moments in time when he was with us, he just didn't have it consistently. He's a guy that he's been all world for a long time, but I think it's a desperation move on their front. I was on Philly 500 show just a week ago, and I said I was asked about the Cowboys, and I said, that offensive line is one injury away, and I was like, can Smith and Zach hold up? And within 3 hours, Smith got injured, and here we are. So I mean, I think it's tough. I mean, the offensive line has had issues over the past. You're talking about a guy who's going to be protecting Dak Prescott. I mean, 40-year-old guy in a Tybo class. I'm a little concerned if you're gonna risk it with. But hey, it's not. This is where we want the Cowboys to be. I'm not concerned for them. If that's what they have to do, live and die by Jason Peters protecting your blind side, so be it.
All right. Well, let me ask you this then, because Cowboys are still on most sports books the favorite to win this NFC East. The Eagles are even on a couple, but Dallas is still the consensus. Are you going with the Cowgirls or the Eagles? I mean, what do we got going for this NFC?
I'm definitely.
Is it a 2-horse race only? Or are you throwing the Commanders in there?
I mean, Washington could sneakily do some things, but when you're betting on Wentz, it's Wentz is his own worst enemy. But I really do think that the Eagles have done a tremendous job this year putting together a roster that is hands down one of the top rosters in the NFL. I think the Cowboys right now, they're just I like what they do defensively. Their front, DeMarcus Lawrence, Mike Parsons, all world. I think they're a serviceable defense. I like what they do, especially up front. I just really feel like they've dropped the ball in terms. I think you're gonna be relying on guys like Jalen Tolbert to come through. CD is CD, but overall, Dalton Schultz is a guy who I like his game. Was a big fan of his coming out of college, but I think I mean, and then you have Dak Prescott, who's been, for his career, he's done well. But to rely on them to put it all together is where that's where I stand on the Eagles, where they've done a great job putting together a great nucleus, the pass catching weapons, tremendous tight end wise, offensive line, defensive line. You're talking about $94 million poured into this defensive line and offensive line. That's where they win in the trenches. So at the end of the day, I think everything is set up for Jalen Hurts to really be successful. Even if you don't have to him be a world beater, if he's managed to splash plays downfield, a solid run game, you're really cooking with gas with this unit this year. And if they gel together off the field like that 2017 team, they're set up to make a run.
Yeah, listen, Jalen Hurts doesn't have to be an all-pro here. He just has to steer the ship. This team is structured for him to just steer the ship right into that postseason. So we'll stay tuned there. Speaking of the Cowboys, I heard Michael Gallup now is looking unlikely to play week 1. So you mentioned Jalen Tolbert out of South Alabama. He's going to be counted upon to start there for Dallas. And I'm not putting a lot of stock or confidence into Mike McCarthy there, the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, this guy wouldn't recognize talent if it slapped him in the face. I mean, Tony Pollard is the better running back, and he continues to start Ezekiel Elliott. So, hey, good for you, Dallas. I'm not buying in. I've got Philly. I'm rolling with Gayle here. And we're rolling over to fourthandjawn.com. Tell the listening audience at home all the content you got coming, what you'll be doing, what you got on the horizon.
Well, we'll definitely be out there traveling. We'll be out there, we'll be traveling with Philly Sports Trips this year, really just supporting our Eagles. That's what we do. We're really we try to be everywhere that the Eagles are and try to get you intel that, other people won't get. We're just out there really just trying to, love on our birds like we always do. We'll be tailgating every home game. If you're looking for a tailgate, you don't have anyone to tailgate with at home game, show up to us. We're sponsored by Bud Light, free beer. We make cheesesteaks. We got free tomato pies from Conti Bakery. It's all about just taking care of our fellow Eagle fans. That's what we do.
Where do we locate you in the parking lot? Where do we come find you?
Oh, we're usually in the G lot, but we can be anywhere. But check our socials. And we'll, the party, we do have a shout out to our DJ, DJ Lowski. We always have a DJ at our tailgate, so it's always a good time, good party. Shout out to my guy Evan Hearn, Prime. We have Hollis Thomas in the mix. He's been joining Fourth and Jawn as of late, and Mal Davis and Chris Malley. So it's we're always talking the Eagles. It's something that we do. We can't stop. It's kind of an addiction.
No, that's cool. And so, all right, follow at Eagle Sessions game day morning to see where they're at in the parking lot. And I saw the Eagles travel deal that you're affiliated with. Tell our listening audience a little bit more about that, because I believe that we have a lot of audience members that would be interested in that. I saw some kind of trip. Where are you going, down in Washington? You're organizing?
We're doing a bus trip down there. You can jump on a bus. Everything's included. Your tailgate ticket, your ticket to the game. We'll be down there in Detroit. Same big trip. We'll be a resort down there, tailgating with a bunch of Eagle fans. The Arizona trips will be nice. I'm not a big fan of flying, but we'll be flying out.
I was going to say, we're not taking the bus to Arizona, right? We're not taking the bus to Arizona.
No, we're not. We're definitely flying. We got to get you out there, Rick. I mean, I don't know how much of a tailgater you are or a partier, but I know you know your music though. I know you know your music though.
Yes, I do. No, I promise you I'll be at least one tailgate. I can't promise it'll be on the road, but I'll get down there to one of these Fourth and Jawn tailgates. You can best believe it. And then we'll mosey on over to the Ocean Casino Resorts for the Eagles post game right after. But no, appreciate the time. I'm hoping that we can pop you on here throughout the season. So we'll chat off the air. I appreciate you hopping on here with us today, and buckle up. It's going to be a fun season.
Go Birds, man.